Charlie, I think you have a good shot someday at being president.
New footage just flipped the entire case on its head. Kirk's alleged shooter, turns out he never even fired. His assassination, his explosive politics, Robinson's dark past, Trump's MAGA alliance, everything collides in one shocking storm. But the most haunting question still lingers. Who really pulled the trigger? And why is the truth still buried? The murder of Charlie Kirk has been turned completely upside down by newly released footage. 4 weeks, the world was led to believe Tyler Robinson was the rooftop sniper, the man who fired the deadly shot. But the camera doesn't lie. Frame by frame, the video exposes what prosecutors never dared to admit. The accused never pulled the trigger. And if Robinson didn't do it, then who did? On September 10th, 2025, Charlie Kirk, conservative firebrand, founder of Turning Point USA, and a man who thrived on controversy, stood before a packed crowd of students at Utah Valley University. It wasn't his first time sparking tension on a liberal campus, and as always, the audience was split. Some came to cheer, others came ready to challenge him. The event started off like any other. Kirk, seated confidently under the canopy, mic in hand, firing off answers with that signature boldness. Phones were raised, cameras rolling. For fans, it was a chance to see their hero in action. For critics, it was an opportunity to watch him slip. Then chaos. At exactly 12:23 p.m., a single gunshot shattered the calm. The bullet ripped through Kirk's neck. He collapsed as his team rushed in panic. Screams echoed through the plaza, students froze in disbelief, and children near the stage burst into tears as panic swept the crowd. Security scrambled, dragging barriers aside for medics. Kirk was rushed to the hospital, but within the hour, the news everyone dreaded came. He was gone. In the frenzy that followed, confusion reigned. Some swore the shooter was hidden in the crowd. Others claimed the shot came from the Hall of Flags, that glass-walled walkway overlooking the plaza. Witnesses pointed upward, and minutes later, a UVU officer raced toward the rooftop. Gravel impressions marked the spot where someone had clearly been lying, rifle aimed directly at Kirk's stage. Investigators claimed the rooftop was the sniper's nest. That night, the nation didn't just mourn, it split in two. Former President Donald Trump spoke out in grand, emotional tones. He didn't just grieve Charlie Kirk, he anointed him. To Trump, Kirk wasn't only a victim. He was a fallen warrior, a future leader silenced for daring to speak his truth. His message rang loud and clear. This wasn't just murder, it was an assassination. But while the political firestorm raged, investigators were stuck on one critical question. Who actually pulled the trigger? By morning, police released grainy stills from campus security footage. The images showed a man in dark clothes, baseball cap pulled low, and sunglasses masking his face, crawling across the rooftop just minutes before the fatal shot. His every move was slow, careful, calculated. The footage hit every major network, and within hours, the phone lines blew up with tips. Hundreds of miles away in southern Utah, one woman froze when she saw the broadcast. Tyler Robinson's mother. Her heart dropped. The man in the footage looked just like her son. Panicked, she called him right away. Robinson insisted he was homesick, nowhere near Utah Valley University. But the doubt wouldn't leave her. When she showed the pictures to her husband, he felt it too. "That looks like Tyler," he whispered. From there, the case snowballed. Prosecutors would later say Robinson's parents, terrified for his safety, begged him to talk. They described him as agitated, depressed, spiraling. At one point, Robinson allegedly confessed he couldn't handle prison, that he'd rather die than face it. Fearing the worst, the family reached out to a trusted friend, a retired sheriff's deputy, who finally convinced Tyler to come in peacefully. On September 11th, Robinson walked into the Washington County Sheriff's Office beside his parents and surrendered. The very next day, Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray stood before cameras and laid out the charges. His words were heavy, deliberate, and final. This was no random act. It was a premeditated, politically fueled assassination.
Murder of Charlie Kirk is an American tragedy. Like all murders, the senseless and needless taking of Charlie Kirk's life has shattered the lives of those he loved and those who loved him.
Gray's words didn't just accuse Robinson, they branded him. Not as a confused young man, but as a cold-blooded killer. The evidence, at first glance, sounded airtight. Police claimed they found a bolt-action rifle near the campus, wrapped in a towel, 1 bullet fired, 3 still loaded. They said Robinson's DNA was everywhere, on the rifle, the towel, even the engraved bullet casings. The strange carvings, messages like, "Hey fascist, catch this," and "Bella Ciao," were paraded as proof of a politically fueled hit. But when the newly released footage hit the public eye, everything started to unravel. The prosecution's timeline placed Robinson on that rooftop the very second Kirk was shot. Yet frame by frame, the video started telling a different story. Experts noticed the shooter's body type didn't quite match Robinson's. Even the walk, that slight limp visible in the footage, didn't line up with his normal stride. And the biggest flaw of all, the actual gunfire was never caught on camera. The tape shows someone crawling into position, then bolting right after the shot rings out, but never actually firing. That single gap in the footage cracked the foundation of the entire case. 4 weeks, the public was told the video proved Robinson was the sniper. But slow it down! Watch closely! It never actually shows him pulling the trigger. Then came the so-called confession texts. In one message to his roommate, Robinson claimed he ditched the rifle in some bushes after the shooting. But officers said they found it neatly wrapped in a wooded area, staged, almost like a setup. In another text, he allegedly bragged he'd been planning the attack for a week. Yet when digital analysts combed through his phone and computer, there wasn't a single solid trace of that planning. So were these genuine confessions? Or the desperate ramblings of a young man breaking under pressure, maybe even manipulated into taking the blame? Meanwhile, the political circus was in full swing. Within hours, Trump and his allies jumped on the tragedy, pushing the narrative that left-wing extremists were behind the hit.
It's not about Antifa because Antifa is not an organization. There's no evidence linking Charlie Kirk's shooters to Antifa or any other left organization.
Critics fired back hard, accusing Trump and his allies of weaponizing the tragedy, turning Kirk's death into a political war cry to justify crackdowns on their opponents. But beneath all the noise, those who actually examined the evidence saw something far darker. A chilling possibility that Tyler Robinson might never have pulled the trigger at all. His DNA on the rifle, that could easily be explained. It was his own gun, a family gift, something his father openly confirmed. The text messages, they could be read as guilt or just a spiral of confusion and despair. And that so-called smoking gun video, it still stops right before the moment of the shot, showing everything except the act itself. So the question echoes louder than ever. If the footage proves the accused shooter never fired, then who did? And why does it feel like the authorities are so desperate to close this case, even if that means letting the real killer walk free? Because the truth is, Charlie Kirk was never just another conservative voice. By the time of his death, he had become a lightning rod, one of the most recognizable, divisive figures in America's culture wars. Through Turning Point USA, the organization he launched at just 18, Kirk built more than a movement. He built a media empire that turned college campuses into battlegrounds for the soul of a generation. His followers praised him as a fearless truth-teller, unafraid to take on the progressive mainstream. His critics, they saw him as a provocateur, someone who thrived on outrage more than understanding. That split, that tension, was all on display in Utah Valley University's plaza the day he died. Kirk stood beneath the canopy, tackling questions on guns, immigration, and gender, the hot-button issues that defined his career. Then one bullet changed everything. To his supporters, it wasn't just an attack on a man, it was an attack on free speech itself. To his detractors, it was the horrifying moment rhetoric turned deadly. And even in death, Kirk's legacy became part of the fight. Former President Donald Trump wasted no time spinning the assassination as proof of Kirk's power and the threat he posed to the left.
Charlie, I think you have a good shot someday at being president.
To Trump, Kirk wasn't just a campus activist. He was a potential president. In waiting, the framing elevated that. Crime from murder to political martyrdom. For prosecutors, those same. Politics became evidence of motive. At the press conference announcing charges, Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray didn't mince words. He described the attack as an offense against the state carried out because of Kirk's political expression.
It is further alleging aggravating factors on counts 1 and 2 because the defendant is believed to have targeted Charlie Kirk based on Charlie Kirk's political expression.
Main clip. That endorsement elevated Kirk's profile, even further, cementing him as both a protege of Trump and a future leader of the movement. For Tyler Robinson, Kirk represented the kind of conservative voice he despised. According to investigators, Robinson's criticisms of Kirk were personal as much as political. His father said the two argued over Kirk's events, with Robinson accusing Kirk of spreading hate. His mother said Robinson had grown more entrenched in progressive causes, particularly LGBTQ plus rights, precisely the kind of issues Kirk often targeted. Bound by MAGA, Charlie Kirk's meteoric rise as a conservative activist cannot be separated from Donald Trump. Before 2015, Kirk was already a familiar face. On the right, the young founder of Turning Point USA popping up on Fox News and drawing attention for his fiery campus events. But it was Trump's presidential campaign and later his presidency that gave Kirk not only legitimacy but power. Trump's shock victory in 2016 created a vacuum, a movement defined by older voices needed a bridge to younger voters. Kirk stepped into that role effortlessly. With his knack for social media, his sharp sound bites, and his ability to package MAGA's grievances for college campuses, Kirk became a vital surrogate. He defended Trump on cable news, organized youth rallies, and turned Turning Point USA into a staging ground for the next generation of conservative activists. The bond between the two men was personal as much as political. Trump often praised Kirk publicly, describing him as a great young man with limitless potential. Main clip. Trump knew exactly how powerful Charlie Kirk's influence was. While MAGA drew its strength from older, diehard voters, Kirk held the golden ticket, access to young, impressionable audiences Trump could never fully reach on his own. The student unions, the buzzing lecture halls, the college quads, those were Kirk's arenas. In return, Kirk basked in Trump's glow, gaining a level of legitimacy most 20-something activists could only dream of. Turning Point USA became, in many ways, the unofficial youth wing of the MAGA empire. Its conferences featured Trump himself, along with his family and inner circle. Its branding, the American flags, the bold fonts, the patriotic slogans, felt like a mirror image of Trump's rallies. And its message, pure MAGA, fight the establishment, reject fake news, and defend conservative values from the so-called liberal takeover. Of course, not everyone was buying the partnership. Critics accused Kirk of turning TPUSA into little more than Trump's propaganda machine, stripping away any trace of independent conservative thought. They pointed to the donor lists, stacked with the same deep-pocketed financiers who funded Trump's campaigns, as proof that TPUSA wasn't just inspired by MAGA, it was MAGA. But for Kirk's followers, that was never a flaw. That was the goal. They didn't want distance from Trump. They wanted loyalty, alignment, and Kirk delivered. He hailed Trump as the greatest president of his lifetime, defended him through every scandal and impeachment, and loudly echoed Trump's election fraud claims after 2020. To Kirk, Trump wasn't just a political leader, he was a savior, a symbol of America's last stand.
And they use opportunities like this to rewrite the narrative and then shift and blame their opposition and usher in, frankly, calls for violence and crackdowns. And I think we need to remember that even though there's no evidence linking Charlie Kirk's shooters to Antifa or any other left organization, they're going to proceed recklessly.
He was a great young man, credible future. Some people said he might be president someday.